So, welcome, Leeann. So, I'm going to give a little introduction to Leeann. Leeann and I met through the fitness classes that I do, and Leeann came along and has been coming along and done several kind of programs for the last wee while. But in honour, if you like, of International Women's Day, really wanted to give a shout out to some ladies who are, out there walking the walk, talking the talk, kind of embodying all of the things that International Women's Day stands for. So really want to shout out and go, woo, thank you, Leeann. Kind of Leeann, mum of 3, wife to 1, sister, aunt, niece, all of those lovely things that ladies embody these days. But also really keen to kind of shout out about your successes kind of in the business world. You're in partnership with another lady with an organisation called Web. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that, but also to talk to you a little bit about the charity foundation that you're involved with, kind of information communications manager, director with that organisation, the Smiths-Magennis Foundation. So I'm going to go, lips sealed, and just hand over to you, Leeann. So where would you like to start with?
Well, I'll start with the foundation first, only just to give you a little bit of background. I have a daughter who's 14. She was diagnosed with Smith-Magennis syndrome when she was 3 years old, and it was probably around about a year or so later that I actually became involved with the charity as a trustee. I've taken on the role as an information and communications manager, so now I help direct that, and have been working with them now as an employee for a year. In a very impromptu coffee with a friend, I met Jo Waltham, who at the time she was the single director. She'd set up Web as a small business, WordPress agency. She happened to be looking for a web designer. So she sort of looked at me and said, are you interested? I was a little bit, at the time I was not employed. I was a full-time mum. I'd been out of work for about 10 years.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting it at all. And I didn't imagine that I would be returning to work with 3 children and one with very complex needs. And brought my skills back up to date again, and I'm now a co-director with Jo in the business.
Yeah, fabulous, fantastic. So I understand Web, you tend to work with organisations that are charity based.
We enjoy working with local people. That's something we're quite passionate about. We've worked with some local organisations and some local charities, and we've also worked with some bigger national charities, and obviously as somebody who works and has been a trustee for a charity for such a long time, I really do enjoy working for a good cause.
How do you manage working with Web, being a partner there, obviously really, really responsible position, and managing the foundation and everything that you do in that, and particularly, all the fundraising that you need to do for that, and home life and being educating kids? I mean, you have skills.
Yeah, so managing everything has been challenging, much like everyone else, really. I mean, lots of my friends are having to work from home and homeschool, and it's been hard because you're torn between so many different things all day long. I'm the other half of a team. Will and I work together to try and muck through it together, really, and I have to accept that my house doesn't look as clean as I perhaps like it to be, and tidy, and when they're back at school we'll sort all that stuff out later, and but together we do it.
A couple of things. With the foundation, the Smith-Magennis Syndrome Foundation, you must have come across kind of bias, those sorts of things, and certainly with International Women's Day, the ethos behind that is aiming for equality, breaking down stereotypes, breaking down bias.
previously worked in very male-dominated environments. I worked in IT for a long time, and I also come from a 3D furniture making degree, so that tended to be very male-dominated as well. So I was I've always been used to working with a lot of men, but what horrified me, I suppose, was situations that came about where better opportunities might have gone, better projects might have gone to my male counterparts, and the differences in salary for doing essentially the same job. Those were the sort of things that at the time were difficult in the corporate world. The banking's back then certainly was quite, it was a man's world. So yeah. To survive in that environment, you kind of, it was a tough place to be at times.
Yes, I remember that. Many moons ago, I was in the corporate world too, slightly different, but in the IT environment, and it was a man's world, definitely. Again, I would like to think that it's very different now, and then it was always finding that balance, I felt, between, you know, being really good at your job, and I always felt that women to a degree had to kind of be better almost than the male counterparts in order to be recognised and kind of break down some of those barriers. But with the business that you run now, do you feel that perhaps because it's you and Joe, and I think predominantly female in your current kind of partnership with that business, do you feel still that there are barriers to be broken down?
Yeah, I do. I think our strength is that we are two women and we bring something different to the work that we do. We bring empathy, which I wouldn't like to say you don't get from men, because that would be stereotyping men. But we can bring a softness, an empathy, and an understanding when it comes with our approach to a project and with our approach to clients. So we like to think we're friendly. We like to think we're approachable. The fact that we're women does not make us any different in terms of our skill set. We understand the technology equally as well as men, and we keep our skills as up to date as possible. And I think that's something we promote in the business.
Do you kind of think that there are other areas where we still, even just thinking locally, are there things going on locally that we feel, there might be some inequalities that we could work towards?
I think there are still lots and lots of stereotypes out there with the kind of gender roles as we sort of see them. We kind of always assume that a plumber's going to be a man, don't we? Or a mechanic, or and similarly we might see certain care roles more assigned to females. And technology definitely was male dominated sort of 15-20 years ago. I don't think it's that way at all now. I think it's really balanced out, and actually lots more women work in technology these days. And technology itself is an ever-changing, evolving industry, so it gives everybody almost a level playing field, which I think is fantastic, really, because what I do now will probably be quite different in 10 to 15 years time, when my children are making their way out into the world of work and business. So.
Yes, and what about people with disabilities? Because I know, that's kind of what you're fundraising for, campaigning for. That's what all the charity work is about. How do you feel that we're progressing with that? Do you think that's changing and moving forward as well, Leeann?
It's a difficult one to answer. I look at what options Lily has for her future, and adults with learning disabilities have for their futures, and often feels quite bleak. There aren't many opportunities for children and adults that have a learning disability, and often, an adult or a child at the moment, but an adult like Lily will need support for the rest of her life. It's very difficult, but what I do think is really, really important is that she sees her mum working, her mum in a career, and she understands that her mother is contributing to her future, to our entire family's future, and that's what's sort of expected. Really, really important, and I want her to understand that at some point she may well need lots of support to do it, but I would love for her to be doing something that she enjoys, where she can contribute, because she can. There's no reason why she can't do something. So I've got 2 little boys too, and it's really, really important to me that they see their mum working, and not just working, but the volunteering and the other stuff I've done in the past as well, because again, they won't see that divide between men and women as they grow up.
Moving on for that, our family dynamic has changed, and I expect lots of family dynamics have changed since we've been in lockdown. And it used to be, everybody was going out to work. I was the one that was trotting back and forth. And so typically I would be the one who took on the domestic duties and cooking and things like that. But since we've been in this lockdown, the situation has changed. I've had one furloughed, one's at uni, and my husband working from home. And actually he's taken on a lot of the cooking in the evening because we all like to sit down and eat together. We've had the opportunity to do that. And so very often while I'm doing my classes, he's cooking. So, and that's really good for my son to see that it's not just mum who does those things, it's dad. He can do the cooking, he can put the washing machine on, he can put the hoover around, clean the bathrooms, and all of those other things. So, I think in some ways lockdown is good like that, because otherwise we were kind of stuck with that stereotype: your husband going out to work, wife working, but working ostensibly from home and toing and froing from a home base. Some benefits, some of the nice things with lockdown, which again may well have worked towards getting rid of some of those inequalities between the two sexes and stereotypes and those. I'm going to say thank you very much for being an awesome person who works so hard. I know that you work so hard in your business, at home, raising, the children, the foundation, all of the fundraising and everything that you do. It's just, you kind of embody all of the ethos of the International Women's Day.